What makes a person a person? Do you know? Can you tell what a person is just by seeing them? Is being a person strictly to humans, or can other beings be a person too, like Coco the gorilla, or a character like Elias from Ancient Magus Bride, or Elreka from Eureka 7? These kinds of questions have boggled the minds of philosophers and otakus like myself, but with some help from one of my favorite animes, we might be able to get to the bottom of some of these questions. Parasyte, a series created by Hitachi Iwaki and published in Kodansha's Afternoon magazine from 1988 to 1995. The manga would later get not one, but two live adaptations before being picked up by Studio Madhouse, where it gets its title Parasyte-The Maxim, and aired in Japan 2014 to 2015, and had an American dub release on Adult Swim from 2015 to 2016. Parasyte centers on Shinichi Izumi, a 17-year-old high school student who lives with his mother and father in a quiet neighborhood in Tokyo. One night, strange worm-like creatures with drills at the head called parasites appear on Earth, taking over the brains of human hosts by entering through their ears or noses. One parasite attempts to crawl into Shinichi's nose, but he sneezes. Shinichi wakes up, parasite burrows into his arm instead, and causing a lifelong friendship. Because Shinichi was able to prevent Migi from traveling further up into his brain, both beings retained their separate intellect and personality. As the duo encounter other parasites, they capitalize on their strange situation and gradually form a strong bond, working together to survive. This gives them an edge in battling other parasites who frequently attack the pair upon realization that Shinichi's human brain is still intact. Shinichi feels compelled to fight other parasites who devour humans as food while enlisting Migi's help. We all know this, Pero, but what does this have to do with personhood? Well, a lot actually, because throughout the series, Shinichi learns a lot about the outside world as well about the world around them. Shinichi sees the parasites as monsters and demons that devour humans, but Migi only sees it as gathering food and compares their actions to what humans do to cattle. Migi also points out the only creature that resembles demons are humans. But this led me to think through the series, Migi seems to be right about nearly everything he says, at least the best ways to survive, and Shinichi stops Migi every time a human might be in danger. My image of Migi slowly started to change. I no longer saw Migi as a fake arm or a parasite, but as a person with its own goals and desires. Then I thought, well, when did I start seeing Migi as a person rather than a parasite or a monster? And if I could see Migi as a person now, can I see others as well? And that is what we are going to talk about here, folks. So buckle up, it's going to be one of those videos. Yes, what Parasyte-The Maxim teaches us about personhood. But before we dive in, let's clarify a few terms, like human and person, as well as two very important questions that might make you see these characters differently. First off, person doesn't equal human. Human is a biological term to describe beings with human DNA, but a person is a moral term. Persons are beings who are part of our moral community. They deserve moral consideration. But now we must ask ourselves these two important questions. Is it possible to be human, yet not a person? And what must one possess to be part of our moral community, deserving of our moral considerations? Now, let's dive in with our first case that comes from a contemporary American legal scholar named John Noonan. John Noonan gives us one way of thinking about personhood called genetic criterion. In this view, you are a person, if you have human DNA, and you are not a person if you don't. This idea is very simple, yet you might see the scale of problems with the idea already. For Migi, he doesn't possess human DNA, and not be a person. As well, Shinichi would still be considered human even though he is now attached with Migi, so he would be considered a person. But what about the other Parasyte characters, like Riko Tamura, Mr. B, or Mr. A? All three of these characters are parasites that were successful in devouring the human's head and taking their bodies. So the parasites themselves, under this idea, would not be considered humans under John Noonan's idea. But what about their bodies? The bodies are still alive. They still function like normal human bodies. They possess human DNA, enough so Riko is able to have a normal pregnancy. So how can we consider a character like Migi to not be a person, but the bodies of Riko Tamura, Mr. B, and Mr. A could still be considered persons? This is where our first question we have to ask ourselves comes in handy. Is it possible to be human, yet not a person? But for now, let's move on to our next idea, social criterion. This view says that if a person, whenever society recognizes you as a person, or whenever someone cares about you. We might see this one as an easier and better, but just like John Noonan's idea of genetic criterion, social criterion also has its flaws. It would mean that Migi, our right-hand man, wouldn't have become a person until Shinichi cares for him. Luckily, he does. But what about others? Wouldn't Hito Shinomata been considered a person if at least one person cared for him? I'm sure Riko Tamura didn't, but at least one of his classmates must have. Well, that is until he had acid thrown on him and showed that he was a parasite and went all kill crazy at the school. But does that mean he was a person? Then when he lost that one care, he wasn't a person anymore? And here's the main one. Wouldn't all of the parasites have been considered a person because of Takashi Hirakawa? If you don't remember, Takashi Hirakawa was the ringleader of a parasite conspiracy to conquer humanity and one of the series' main antagonists. A fanatic environmentalist, he firmly believes the parasite's purpose is to coil the human population for the greater good of the planet. He is greatly connected with Gato, thus, at least till his death, Gato would have been considered a person by this idea. So we can see even this idea can have a few of its problems. Now, I wanted to save this idea for last, because it seems to be what the series sees as what constitutes personhood, and it is an idea from American philosopher Mary Ann Warren. In her idea, she offers 5 specific criteria that she believes together constitutes personhood: consciousness, reasoning, self-motivated activity, capacity to communicate, and self-awareness. Under this criteria, for personhood presented by Mary Ann Warren, every character in Parasyte Maximum would be considered a person. Even our dog friend from the first episode, remember him? The 8 pounds of talking nope. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, wait, Pero, so this whole video was a lead up to you saying that every being, parasite and human, all deserve personhood? Why? Why would Hitachi Iwaki write it that way? It's actually quite simple and poetic. Parasyte wasn't an anime with the mentality of us versus them. It was showing us that humans and the parasites were not so different from each other, In fact, it was showing us more and more on how humans could become monsters like the parasites, and how the parasites could become more and more human, with Migi and especially Rico Tamra, who said that the two species were just two sides to the same coin, being prime examples. He was showing us that all life deserves moral consideration. Don't believe me? Read this line from the series after the battle with Gato, and they're trying to decide whether or not to kill him. I might be able to commit irredeemable sin as a human being, but can I say an organism has no right to live just because it's harmful? Even if it is not beneficial to humans, to Earth, it may actually be. But, as we all know, that isn't the route Shinichi goes before killing Gato. This is what Shinichi says right before killing Gato. I'm just one human being. I can only hope to protect my own small family. I'm sorry. You're not at fault, but sorry. Shinichi, through everything in this series, losing his mother to a parasite, losing friends and classmates, even losing Migi, he was still able to stand in front of Gato's regenerating body and believe he deserves moral consideration, which is what we grant to persons. But that is it for now. Come back next week where we discuss personal identity and what Parasyte Maxim teaches about that. I promise after that we can move on to another show. It's just this show has so many levels of philosophical discussion. But before we go, I would like to thank the PBS channel CrashCourse, specifically CrashCourse Philosophy. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't have the tools to make these kinds of videos, and I recommend checking them out, link in the description below. You can like us on Facebook at Paramation, follow me on Twitter at Paramation, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share, because apparently that's what we have to say at the end of the video. Thanks, and see you next week. Paro out.